people watching, thank you for coming so quickly. The latest thing is, well, I didn't go to the Traditional Britain group. I suppose I could have tried going, but it didn't occur to me. And I didn't really hear about it until it was over. Though by all accounts, it seems people had a reasonably good time. I should look up the programme for the Traditional Britain group. TBG. I don't even know who the speakers are. Are any of my viewers attendees of the conference? Some people who did go said they fell asleep. But the drinks was more fun. That's typically how it always is. Not so much the endless lectures, but talking about the talk afterwards. I suppose I would have a lot to say about Mrs. Mullally rhyming with Doolally. One can imagine the kind of conversation they were having. But yeah, the latest thing is that the Archbishop of Canterbury is a woman whose name rhymes with Doolally. I should welcome it, I suppose, because this could only be a kind of accelerationism towards Sharia. I mean, how much more humiliation can British men take before they finally conclude that Christianity isn't working anymore? And this followed very quickly on the killing of Charlie Kirk. I know that a lot of conspiracy theorists say it's because the Jews did it because he was no longer supportive of Israel. But until, I was going to say the jury is out, but the jury hasn't even been called. The jury is not yet sitting because his trial has not even started. So why are we assuming that the Jews did it when well, I know there are all sorts of conspiracy theories that the CIA are very good at getting crazy loners to kill whoever they want to kill by financing their shooting lessons and giving them the guns and whatever, giving him. So we don't know, but I'm certainly not going to speculate on who really did it. Suffice to say that it hasn't been a good time for Christians lately, and the number one poster boy for Christian nationalism is Charlie Kirk, and he was killed. And not only did that happen, his widow forgave his killer within 11 days. Shock horror. That must have been really even more of a blow to Christian husbands everywhere. My impression from talking to various people in the last few days is really more focus on religion, and I think I know opinion will divide between those who want to try Christianity again and those who reluctantly think perhaps there's something in it in Islam because, well, the Muslims seem to be doing better than the non-Muslims in the West. That is a perception anyway. And of course, Jews are always perceived to do better than Gentiles, no matter what happens to them. So I suppose on the one hand, you if you're a Jew, you would be pleased that people have such a high regard for you that they think you never suffer, you never um, find yourself on the wrong side of the law. Or if you do, it's immediately ignored. And the kind of mystical, magical aspect of your identity is that you are God's chosen people. It's never forgotten. So, should you get holocausted, people will think, well, even if they got holocausted, they still have one over us because they got Israel and we don't, or something of that nature. So, on the question of what's new, this is my perception of the demoralization of Christians and, um, and the impression that Muslims do have all the arguments. I also have noticed that some Protestants are becoming Catholic in America anyway, because I suppose having an American Pope gives them hope. And talking about Catholics, I know E. Michael Jones has been forming this Muslim Christian alliance about um, this Bangladeshi doctor, I think, who said stuff about Zionists and got into trouble with it over it. I suppose being a political commentator, I find myself taking an interest in these things. But does it ever occur to you that if white people really cared about each other, they would be more concerned about the war in Ukraine than um, all the stuff and nonsense going on in Israel between Jews and Muslims? I don't quite know the exact number of casualties. I suppose there will always be, I suppose over the years, there will be more casualties in Israel than. Actually, I don't even know. I don't even know. I'm not even going to make assumptions. But the point is that Gentiles, non-Muslim Gentiles, uh, care more about the situation in Gaza than they care about a war going on in their own continent. And this suggests to me that the love of the European for his fellow European is considerably less than his hatred for Jews and Muslims. And yes, I'm quite pleased that I managed to put it this way, because that is exactly what the situation is. I know Trump made a speech to the Knesset today. I didn't pay much attention to it really, because it seems now that so many shocking things are said, and then nothing really happens. I suppose we'll notice when something really bad happens in the West, in Europe in particular. But then there is already a war in Europe. European leaders, so-called, are borrowing lots of money to continue it. Um, the Russians seem to be very patient so far. I just don't know why people don't give the Europeans a talking to. And by that I mean India or China. just give them a talking to and say, look, you can't carry on like this, behaving like a hooligan, telling lies, not keeping your promises. Why don't they just say it? I know it's not diplomatic, but then I think part of diplomacy is sometimes to be quite rude in order to get the result you want. Um, I see Excessmet is here. Maybe he wants to join me. I guess I kind of wanted to talk to somebody without. So if you want to come on, you're very welcome. I don't think we have ever spoken, have we? So in terms of how I think things are going to go, well, it's very chaotic at the moment. I don't want to flatter myself, but I think I'm the only one with any kind of clarity or vision, or at least clarity of expression of where the whole thing is going. Because ultimately, it is a global war of religions. And that was always a fear from the beginning on the founding of Israel. Somehow, we all thought deep down, if we thought about the thing at all, that because of its religious significance, uh, lots of people would just want to get involved as Jews, as Christians, as Muslims, and interested bystanders. So, really, the global war of religion concerns how we feel about idolatry. And basically, God, if He exists, is saying, you're not a you're not one of the good guys if you don't take idolatry seriously, like the Jews and Muslims. And Christians, sadly, are no longer the good guys because they've lost control of the narrative. So before I started this stream, I was impatiently watching Oren McIntyre interviewing Paul Gottfried, and I really, I've really disliked Gottfried for a long time. He's a Jew who panders to Christians, and I just don't see the point. And it is really part of the problem. The Christians need to be told in no uncertain terms what Jews and Muslims think of their idolatry, and they won't do it. They're going to beat about the bush and try and make everyone feel sorry for them about the situation in Gaza. And it's like, no, it's not going to work. Compassion fatigue has basically stopped us from caring. There's even an expression called doom scrolling. So I don't know. Even if it were the zombie apocalypse, people would still scroll past it, I guess. So really, the Muslims and Jews, if they want to win this particular battle, and I mean only the righteous Jews, of course, would have to come down, however reluctantly, on the side of the Muslims to say, well, at least their religion is not idolatry and absurdity and blasphemy. And this is really how I will be making my point, and I will be encouraging anybody who can understand what I'm saying, who takes an interest in theology, to say the same thing. And I think you can say it whether you like Muslims or not, or like Jews or not. It's something to talk about. And when enough people talk about it, the idea of God possibly taking an interest in human affairs and supporting one side over the other will just be normal. So, with uh, with the way things are, it has become increasingly obvious that a lot of the discourse, certainly on X and also on YouTube, it concerns religion. And today, Gottfried was being interviewed by Oren McIntyre about liberalism, but liberalism is also a religion. And sadly, for a lot of people, they don't seem to notice when something is a religion because they only go by the cover, I guess. So a religion can be, well, communism can be a religion, so can Nazism and fascism, if it has enough of a political impact on the nation um, and how citizens of that nation are supposed to uh, fall in line with the prevailing political orthodoxy. Um, Now I think the West is wobbling because it actually hasn't taken the trouble to give its ideology a name. Woke is not really a name, nor is fundamental British values, which was an attempt to give a name for the mishmash of liberalism and conservatism and feminism and political correctness that we we lived under. In fact, fundamental British values were so uh, universal in its ambition that some Muslims said, well, it's our values too. I remember going to a few Muslim meetings, and I do remember this Muslim woman saying that. So, obviously, words are weapons and shields, and a lot of people don't really care about the meaning of words. I guess it is left to lawyers and philosophers who agonize about what a word might mean and whether somebody using the same word means, takes it to mean what we take it to mean. But it's very important if you want to agree on important things and act on this information. So I guess in a way, it's a kind of progress that more and more people are talking about theology and I'm talking about Islam more positively and not, and even the drip of Islamophobia that, or the waves of Islamophobia that social media platforms are trying to uh, incite um, no longer has that effect. I think people are kind of bored of it, or it's been with them for so long that they can't, bestir themselves with their indignation. And even those who want to complain about Muslims, going back to Muslim grooming acts and, the Rochdale and Rotherham scandals, it's old news. And they are, um, well, there's nothing going on to make us hate Muslims more. I think they've done everything right. They've done everything now, and if they go over the same, rake over the coals, it just wouldn't produce the required emotions of fear and hatred. So, what can we hope for the latest thing? I haven't listened to Trump's speech, but I suppose there's always something going on in the Middle East, isn't there? It's like, yeah, the Jews, the Arabs are killing each other again, and we're supposed to care. And most people don't really. Um, some people hate Jews enough to throw the dead bodies of Palestinians at them, and some people just frankly say they don't care if the Gazans are killed. So what are we to do? But why don't they talk about the war in Ukraine? It doesn't really make sense if you care about people um, to be so focused on the conflict in the Middle East and so indifferent to the war in Ukraine. But before I go, I should just say that I think even as things get worse, they are getting better because it's only when things get worse that people might think about changing their ways. And I just detect a feeling, that, a mood that people are being backed into a corner as regards Christianity. And we should cheer the, um, what's the word when you, it's an appointment, isn't it? Isn't it? The appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury. And it seems that these Christians are, in fact, accelerating towards Sharia. And maybe it is subconsciously their wish all along. So, yeah, I think I've said all I wanted to say. I hope it made sense. I hope I haven't repeated myself. But I thought I'd just keep in touch with you guys. Thank you and goodbye.